The grand living room was suffocating in its silence, the crystal chandelier casting icy beams of light that danced across Lily's pale face. She stood there, trembling hands clutching the divorce papers, her red-rimmed eyes locked on James, the man she once loved more than life itself. Suddenly, her voice erupted, hoarse and raw. "Stop pretending, James. What is this? Some game to erase me from your life?" James stumbled back, his eyes wide, stammering, "Lily, calm down. I can explain." But she cut him off, tears streaming down her face. "Explain. I remember your mother, Evelyn, forcing me out because I couldn't get pregnant. I remember you begging me to forgive you, only to sign these papers anyway. You wanted me to be your little puppet." James dropped to his knees, clutching her legs, his voice breaking. "Lily, I was wrong. I did it all because I love you." But she yanked herself free, her tone icy. "Love me. I'm Lily, the one you betrayed. And now, I'm the one who decides." Tears fell, but her eyes blazed with defiant pride. This is just the beginning of a story packed with drama, twists, and raw emotion. Hey everyone, hit that like button, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and stick around to the end to uncover Lily's journey. Will she forgive, or walk away from James forever? Don't miss out. Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself after the storm raging in her mind. Truth be told, those memories hadn't fully returned. It was more like a gut-wrenching hunch, a whisper from the depths of her heart. Standing before her now was Evelyn, her mother-in-law, posture rigid, arms crossed, thin lips pressed into a smug, unyielding line. The divorce papers lay on the polished ebony table, next to a black ink pen that felt like a death sentence. Evelyn's gaze was razor-sharp, as if it could slice right through her. "Do you remember, Lily?" Evelyn's voice cut through the air, dry and devoid of warmth. 3 years ago, when you stepped into this family, what did I tell you?" Lily lifted her head, lips tightening. She didn't answer right away, but the memory flickered like an old film reel. On the day she and James exchanged vows at the altar, Evelyn had pulled her aside, whispering with an air of authority, "If you don't bear a child within 3 years, you're out. This is a family of legacy, not a haven for the useless." Back then, Lily had smiled, convinced James's love was strong enough to weather any storm. She'd naively thought it was just an empty threat, never imagining it would become the blade hovering over her neck today. 3 years, Evelyn pressed on, her voice cold as ice. "You've had 3 years to prove your worth, and you failed. James needs an heir, a child to carry on our bloodline and fortune. You couldn't deliver." Lily's chest tightened, as if someone was squeezing the life out of her heart. She turned to James, the man she'd once seen as her entire world. He stood a few steps away, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes blankly fixed on the floor. His silence stung worse than Evelyn's venomous words. "James," her voice cracked, trembling like dry leaves in the wind, "is this what you want?" James slowly raised his head, meeting her gaze, but the warmth of their early days was gone. "Yes, Lily," he said, his tone flat and unshaken. "We should end this." His words pierced her like an arrow. Lily staggered back, her hand unconsciously crumpling the papers until her knuckles turned white. She remembered 3 years ago, under a riverside sunset, when James had knelt before her, holding her hand and vowing, "I'll protect you, Lily, no matter what. My mother can't tear us apart." That promise now dissolved like smoke, leaving an emptiness she couldn't fill. Evelyn let out a dry, mocking laugh that echoed through the silent room. "Don't be ridiculous, Lily. Did you think love could rewrite fate? James is my only son, and I won't let him waste his life on a woman who brings nothing to the table." Lily whirled to face her, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and heartbreak. "I did everything for him," she said, her voice choked but resolute. "I loved him, cared for him, sacrificed everything to be the wife he needed. And you say I bring nothing?" Evelyn stepped closer, her heels clicking ominously on the marble floor, each step a hammer blow to Lily's pride. "You love him, fine. But love doesn't produce a child, Lily. You failed at the one thing I demanded. Sign the papers and get out." Lily looked down at the document, the cold black words swimming before her eyes. Her breaths grew heavy, as if the air had turned to lead. She wanted to scream, to rip the papers apart and throw herself into James's arms, begging him to remember their happy days. But when she looked up, his expression remained unchanged, distant, frigid, like she was a stranger who'd wandered into his life. "James," she called again, her voice nearly a plea. "You said you loved me. You said you'd never let anyone hurt me. Now you stand there, letting your mother humiliate me, letting her erase me from your life. Is this really what you want?" Evelyn cut in, her tone sharp as a blade. "Stop asking foolish questions, Lily. Sign it and set James free." But then, unexpectedly, James spoke, his voice low but firm. "Mother, enough." He stepped forward, positioning himself between Lily and Evelyn, a flicker of emotion sparking in his eyes for the first time. "She's still my wife. You can't force her like this." Lily froze, her heart pounding. Could he still care? But that hope shattered when he turned to her, his gaze reverting to ice. "But Mother's right, Lily. We can't go on. Sign it." His words hit her like a punch to the face. The room spun, her legs trembling so violently she had to grip the table to stay upright. She stared at James, the man she'd loved more than herself, and realized he'd chosen family and power over her. Their love had been a dream she'd woven in vain. But then a memory surged back. One rainy night, James had held her in his warm embrace, whispering, "If I ever lose my way, hold me back, Lily. Don't let me lose you." Those words echoed in her mind, a tiny flame igniting amidst the storm. She tightened her grip on the papers, her hands steady now, and looked up at Evelyn with unwavering resolve. "I'll sign," she said, her voice eerily calm, "but not for you or for you, James. I'll sign because I deserve to be free from a family that never saw me as human." Evelyn smirked triumphantly, but James faltered, a flicker of pain crossing his face. Lily picked up the pen, but before she pressed it to the page, she locked eyes with James one last time. "You'll regret this, James. Not today, but someday you'll remember me." The vast living room now lay silent as a tomb, broken only by the ragged sound of Lily's breathing, cutting through the stifling air. The divorce papers rested on the table, next to the black ink pen Evelyn had placed there. A malicious invitation. Lily stood motionless, her arms hanging limp, her gaze fixed on James, the husband she'd once believed would be her lifelong harbor. Moments ago, he'd uttered those cold words, confirming his desire to end it all, leaving a wound in her heart that refused to heal. But then, in that pit of despair, a thought flared up in her mind, fierce and unstoppable. Lily drew a deep breath, steadying herself. She stepped toward the antique wooden cabinet nearby, where she'd once stored their most precious mementos. Her trembling hands opened the drawer, pulling out a yellowed envelope, James's handwriting still vivid across it. "Lily, you are my everything. Even if the world turns its back on us, I'll always be by your side." He'd written it on a rainy night when they'd escaped Evelyn's grip for a fleeting taste of freedom. She clutched the letter tightly, as if it were her last lifeline amid crashing waves. "James," she said, her voice no longer quivering, but steady with an eerie resolve. "Before I sign, I have one final request." Evelyn arched an eyebrow, her thin lips pressing into a taut line. "What now, Lily? What game are you playing before you leave this house?" Her tone was sharp, dripping with contempt. Lily didn't glance at Evelyn, her eyes locked onto James, piercing through him, searching for any remnant of the man who'd once loved her fiercely. "I want one last night with you," she said, her voice low but clear. "One night as husband and wife, before it all ends." The room plunged into a deathly hush. Evelyn froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What?" she snapped, stepping toward Lily with fury etched across her face. "What did you just say? How dare you make such a forbidden request in my home?" Lily gave a faint smile, a mix of pain and defiance. "Forbidden? I'm still his wife, Evelyn. What's so forbidden about one night with my husband? Or are you afraid that after tonight, James won't be able to let me go like you want?" Evelyn spun toward James, her voice rising to a near shriek. "Did you hear what she said? You're not going along with this madness, are you?" James didn't respond immediately. He stood there, fists clenched, his gaze flickering between Lily and his mother. In that moment, Lily caught a glimmer of emotion on his face. Conflict, or perhaps a trace of regret. She stepped closer, holding the letter up before him, her voice softening but still firm. "Do you remember this, James? You wrote that I was your everything. If you want me gone now, give me this last night. Let me hold on to something from you, even if it's just a goodbye." Evelyn lunged forward, snatching the letter from Lily's grasp and tearing it into tiny pieces before hurling them to the floor. "Don't pull these cheap tricks to cling to my son," she roared, her face flushed with rage. "James, say something. Tell her to sign the papers and get out." But James didn't listen to his mother. He stepped forward, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder, his eyes boring into hers. "Fine," he said, his voice low but heavy with weight. "I agree." Evelyn nearly collapsed, clutching her chest as if she'd been stabbed. "James, have you lost your mind? You can't do this to our family," she screamed, but James didn't turn back. He took Lily's hand, pulling her out of the living room, leaving Evelyn's furious cries echoing behind them. The bedroom door clicked shut, darkness swallowing them whole. The flickering glow of the bedside lamp illuminated James's face, highlighting the features Lily had once adored. He released her hand, standing silently for a moment before turning to face her. "Why, Lily?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you want this?" Lily stepped forward, pressing her hand to his chest, feeling his racing heartbeat beneath his shirt. "Because I love you," she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Because I need to know if there's anything left of you that still cares for me, or if it was all a lie. If this is the end, I want it to be real." James said nothing more. He pulled her into his arms, his lips crashing against hers in a kiss so intense it felt like he was trying to say what words couldn't. That night, they melted into each other, the lines between love and hate blurring away. In his embrace, Lily felt the familiar warmth she'd craved, but also heard the sound of her own heart shattering. When he whispered in her ear, his voice hoarse, "I never wanted this, Lily, but I wasn't strong enough to fight her." She realized this wasn't just a goodbye, it was a confession, too late to change anything. As the moonlight faded outside the window, James drifted into sleep beside her, his steady breathing filling the quiet room. Lily lay there, tears soaking her pillow, her hand absently tracing his face. She knew that after tonight he'd no longer be hers, but for now, in this fleeting moment, she had him, even if it was just a fragile illusion before the real nightmare began. The pale morning light slipped through the curtains, casting a faint glow on Lily's face as she stepped out of James's bedroom. Their final night together had passed like a fleeting dream, leaving her with an emptiness she couldn't name. Her legs felt heavy, as if bound by invisible chains, but she forced herself forward. In her hand was the signed divorce paper, the black ink smudged like dried blood on the page. The wedding ring, the symbol of their vows from 3 years ago, sat cold in her pocket, ready to be left behind as the final full stop. As she descended the staircase, the air in the sprawling house grew more suffocating than ever. Evelyn was waiting in the living room, her eyes gleaming with triumph as they landed on Lily. But what made Lily's heart clench wasn't Evelyn. It was the woman standing beside her. Tall and slender, with golden hair and bold red lips, curved into a confident smile, she held something that glinted under the chandelier. The wedding ring Lily had once worn. Now a silent declaration on this stranger's finger. "Lily, hello," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I see you've done your part, haven't you? Good girl. Now meet Sophia, the one who'll take your place in this family." Sophia stepped forward, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. She extended a hand, her gaze sweeping over Lily like she was appraising a worn-out relic. "Hi, I'm Sophia," she said, her tone soft but laced with arrogance. "Don't worry, I'll take good care of James. You did your best, didn't you?" Lily stood frozen, her grip tightening on the divorce papers until her knuckles turned white. The ring on Sophia's finger wasn't just jewelry, it was her ring, the one James had taken back last night while she was still lost in the haze of their final love. The truth stabbed into her like a jagged blade, stealing her breath. "You're wearing my ring," Lily whispered, her voice hoarse, her eyes locked on Sophia. "Who gave you the right to wear it?" Evelyn's sharp laugh cut through the room, echoing coldly. "Your ring? Oh, Lily, don't be absurd. It belongs to James, and now James has chosen Sophia. You're nothing here anymore. Stop making a fool of yourself clinging to things that aren't yours. Blood rushed to Lily's head, a blazing fury igniting in her chest. She stepped closer to Evelyn, her voice trembling but defiant. You think I'll let you turn me into a joke? You want me to slink away quietly so you and her can pretend I never existed? Evelyn smirked, crossing her arms. What do you want, Lily? A grand farewell scene? I can indulge you. She turned to Sophia with a nod. Sophia, why don't you show Lily what you've prepared for James? Maybe she needs to see just how thoroughly she's lost. Sophia smiled, gliding over to a nearby sofa and picking up a red velvet box. She opened it, revealing a pristine white wedding gown, stunning with intricate lace details. This is my wedding dress, Sophia said, her voice light but deliberate. James picked it out for me last night, after you left his room. I was thinking of trying it on now, so you can see how perfect it looks on me. Stay and watch, won't you? Lily's mind reeled, the floor beneath her seeming to crumble. James had chosen a wedding dress for Sophia right after leaving her. The words were a poisoned arrow, sinking deep into her already bleeding heart. She wanted to scream, to lunge forward and tear the dress to shreds, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. Only her eyes, red and brimming with tears, burned with an unyielding fire. I don't need to see, Lily said, her voice icy. She pulled the wedding ring from her pocket, clutching it so tightly that its sharp edges dug into her skin. But before I go, Evelyn, I have one last gift for you. She walked to the small table by the fireplace, where a delicate gift box, James's anniversary present to her from their first year, still sat proudly. With a swift motion, she opened it, pulling out the pearl necklace inside, a treasure she'd once cherished above all else. Before Evelyn and Sophia's stunned eyes, she flung it to the floor and crushed it under her heel, grinding the pearls into white dust. This is everything I ever had with James, Lily said, her voice breaking but proud. Now it's worth nothing, just like how you see me. I hope Sophia gives you the grandchild you're so desperate for, Evelyn. But you'd better hurry, your time's running out. Evelyn's face paled, her eyes widening as if she might lunge forward and slap Lily. How dare you? She roared, but Lily didn't give her the chance to strike. She turned and strode out of the room, her posture unwavering, never once looking back. Evelyn's shouts rang out behind her, but they couldn't hold her anymore. Outside, rain began to fall, cold droplets soaking through Lily's thin clothes. She paused under the porch, taking a deep breath, letting the rain mingle with her final tears. In her pocket, the divorce papers remained, but the ring was gone. She'd left it on the table beside the shattered pearls, a wordless farewell to James. As she stepped forward, a car pulled up beside the road. Her best friend Ava leapt out, her eyes scanning Lily with worry. Lily, oh my God, are you okay? I heard about James and his mother. Ava trailed off, hesitant to finish. Lily gave a faint smile, a blend of pain and liberation. I'm done, Ava. I gave him everything, and now I've got nothing left to lose. Ava pulled her into a tight hug, the rain drenching them both. You don't need them, Lily. I'm here for you. Come on, let's go to my place. As the car rolled away, Lily glanced back at the house one last time. In her mind, James's image flickered, his gentle smile, the loving words he'd once spoken, and the cold stare from this morning. She knew that, though her heart still ached, she'd never return. But deep inside, a question lingered. Would James truly forget her, or was he just running from himself? Rain pounded relentlessly on the deserted highway, droplets slamming against the bus windows as if trying to shatter the stillness inside. Lily sat near the glass, clutching her worn-out bag tightly, her vacant gaze lost in the white blur of the storm. Tucked inside her bag was a hastily written letter, its shaky handwriting revealing a secret she hadn't shared with anyone. She was pregnant. The discovery had come too late, just days after she'd signed the divorce papers and walked away from James. She'd planned to keep it hidden, to leave this city and start anew, but her heart remained heavy, as if unable to let go of the broken pieces of their love. The bus jolted along the slick road, its engine's growl blending with the roar of the rain. Lily rested a hand on her stomach, whispering to herself, "Just you and me now, and we'll be okay." But before those words could comfort her, a piercing screech tore through the air. The driver shouted, tires skidding on the wet pavement, and before Lily could grasp what was happening, the bus slammed into an oncoming truck. Glass shattered, metal crunched, and the passengers' screams merged into a horrifying symphony. Lily's body lurched forward, her head striking the seat, and darkness swallowed her in an instant. Miles away, in a lavish church adorned with white flowers, James stood at the altar, his hand clasped around Sophia's. Dressed in a sleek black tuxedo, his eyes were hollow, as if his soul had abandoned his body. Sophia beamed beside him, her white wedding gown hugging her flawless figure. Evelyn sat in the front row, hands clasped tightly, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Today was the day James would officially turn the page, a chapter she'd meticulously orchestrated. But just as the priest prepared to recite the vows, the church doors burst open. Richard, James's trusted assistant, stumbled in, panting, his suit drenched from the rain. "Mr. James," he shouted, his voice cracking with panic, "it's an emergency." Evelyn shot to her feet, her eyes blazing. "Richard, what are you doing? This is my son's wedding. Whatever it is, it can wait." James released Sophia's hand and stepped away from the altar, his expression darkening. "Speak, Richard. What's happened?" Richard leaned in, whispering shakily into his ear. "Lily. She was in a bus accident on her way out of state. Multiple fatalities. She's critical in the hospital." He hesitated, then added a bombshell that stopped James's heart. "And she's pregnant." James's legs buckled, the ground seeming to collapse beneath him. The letter from Lily, the one he'd found in her old bag while rummaging through memories, flashed in his mind. He'd read it last night, half drunk, but hadn't dared believe it was real. Now, Richard's words shattered every doubt. He turned to Sophia, then to Evelyn, his eyes igniting with a fire even he didn't recognize. "I have to go," he said, his voice like ice. Without waiting for a response, he bolted from the church, leaving Sophia stunned at the altar and Evelyn's furious cries echoing behind him. "James, get back here! You can't do this to our family!" The rain still poured as James sped down the road, water splashing across the windshield. He didn't care about the wedding, Sophia's disappointed gaze, or his mother's wrath. All he could see was Lily, her tear-reddened eyes as she'd left him, her trembling voice begging for one last night. He'd let her go, and now she lay somewhere between life and death, carrying his child. At the hospital, chaos reigned. Reporters swarmed the gates, camera flashes cutting through the storm, the sobs of victims' families mingling with ambulance sirens. James shoved through the crowd, slamming his hands on the reception desk. "Where's Lily? Where's Lily Carter?" he roared, his voice drowning out the clamor. The startled nurse fumbled with her records. "Room 4, sir, but she—" James didn't wait for her to finish. He raced down the hall, his wet shoes leaving streaks on the floor. When he flung open the door to room 4, the sight stopped him cold. Lily lay motionless on the bed, her head wrapped in white bandages, her face so pale it barely seemed alive. Beside her, Emma, Lily's best friend, stood with her back turned, speaking to the doctor. At the sound of the door, Emma spun around, her eyes flaring with anger as she recognized James. "What are you doing here?" She stepped forward, blocking his path, her voice razor-sharp. "You have no right to be here after what you did to her." James didn't answer. He brushed past Emma, reaching Lily's bedside, his trembling hands grazing hers. "How is she?" he asked the doctor, his voice rough. The doctor adjusted his glasses, his tone calm but cautious. "She's past the critical stage, but she hasn't woken up. We've stabilized her and the baby she's carrying." James's chest tightened. The baby, his child. He turned to Emma, his eyes pleading. "You knew she was pregnant?" Emma scoffed, crossing her arms. "Yeah, I knew, and I told you when you called last night, didn't I? But you were still going to marry Sophia today. If it weren't for this accident, you'd have buried Lily for good, wouldn't you?" James stepped back, his fists clenching. He wanted to argue, but Emma's words stabbed straight through him. She was right. He'd planned to shove Lily into the past, but that letter he'd found and hidden had shaken him. Now, standing before her, he couldn't deny how terribly he'd messed up. Suddenly, the door flew open again. Evelyn stormed in, her face flushed with fury. "James, you ditched your wedding to come here for her?" She jabbed a finger at Lily, her voice trembling with rage. "She's nothing. Get back to Sophia now, or you'll ruin everything we've built." James turned, his gaze so cold it made Evelyn falter. "Mother, enough," he said, his voice low but commanding. "She's carrying my child. If you want an heir, that's it. As for Sophia, I don't need her." Evelyn's jaw dropped, but no words came. James turned back to Lily, his eyes blurring with tears. He took her hand, whispering, "I'm sorry, Lily. I won't lose you again." But deep inside, a painful question gnawed at him. Would she forgive him when she woke up and remembered everything? Faint sunlight filtered through the tall trees, scattering across the red dirt path, leading to a wooden house tucked away in the remote countryside. Lily awoke on a large bed, soft blankets cradling her body. But her mind was a blank slate, her head throbbed dully, a lingering echo of the horrific accident she couldn't fully recall. She touched her forehead, feeling the rough gauze, then scanned the unfamiliar room. Rustic wooden walls, a small table with a vase of wildflowers, and the faint scent of dried grass, all foreign yet strangely peaceful. The door creaked open, and James stepped in, carrying a wooden tray with a steaming bowl of porridge. He wore a simple white shirt, a far cry from the black tuxedo he'd donned for his aborted wedding to Sophia. His eyes lit up when he saw her awake, but there was something in them, a veiled unease she couldn't decipher. "Lily, you're awake," he said, his voice gentle as a breeze. He set the tray on the table, sat on the edge of the bed, and took her hand. "How do you feel?" Lily frowned, digging through her memory, but found only a foggy void. Who am I?" she whispered, her voice lost. "Who are you?" James froze, his grip tightening slightly. "You're Lily," he said, his tone warm but firm. "And I'm James, your husband. We've been married for 5 years. You were in an accident, but you're safe now. I brought you here to recover." Lily stared at him, her eyes wide with shock. Husband? 5 years? The words echoed in her mind, but no images surfaced to back them up. She wanted to believe him. His face radiated sincerity, and his touch felt oddly familiar, but a vague unease gnawed at her. "An accident," she murmured, straining to remember. A loud bang, shattering glass, and a flash of pain. That was all she had. "I don't remember anything." "James, why can't I remember you?" James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The doctor said you have temporary amnesia from the trauma. Don't worry, I'll help you remember." He stood, retrieving a small photo frame from a drawer. In it, he and Lily stood beneath a blooming cherry tree, hand in hand, beaming. "This is us, on our 3rd anniversary. You loved cherry blossoms." Lily took the frame, her trembling fingers brushing over her own smiling face. She looked happy, but the image felt distant, like someone else's dream. "It's beautiful," she said hesitantly, "but I don't remember." James rested a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft yet resolute. "It's okay, Lily. We have time. I'll tell you everything, about this house, our trips, our wedding day. You'll remember eventually." In the days that followed, James cared for her like a model husband. He cooked for her, shared stories of their life together. From their first meeting at a quaint coffee shop to a beach trip he claimed she adored. He even hung more photos around the house, wedding shots, embraces at sunset, all perfectly staged to convince her they were a blissful couple. But each night, as she lay in bed, strange dreams crept in, a blonde woman laughing brightly, a cold voice saying, "You don't belong here." She'd jolt awake, drenched in sweat, but kept it from James. One afternoon, while James was outside fetching water from the well, Lily decided to search the house for clues. She opened an old cabinet in the corner, and her heart nearly stopped when she found a small, locked wooden box. With the little strength she had, she pried it open with a hairpin, revealing a stack of photos. Not of her and James, but of James with another woman, blonde and sharp-eyed. Scribbled in the corner of one was, "James and Sophia, engagement day." Lily's head spun. Sophia? Engagement? If she was his wife, who was this woman? She shoved the photos back into the box as James's footsteps approached. He entered, holding a water jug, smiling as if nothing was amiss. "What are you doing?" he asked casually. "Nothing," Lily replied, forcing her voice to stay steady. Just tidying up a bit. James nodded, but a flicker of suspicion crossed his eyes. That night, when he handed her a white pill and a glass of water, saying it would aid her memory, Lily took it but didn't swallow. She pretended to, then slipped it under her pillow as he turned away. A fierce instinct told her James was hiding something, and she had to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Emma sat in her small apartment, clutching her phone, her eyes red with worry. She'd tried calling Lily dozens of times, but every call went unanswered. James had whisked Lily away right after she woke in the hospital, denying Emma even a goodbye. "What's he doing to her?" Emma muttered, slamming her hand on the table. She recalled her last call with James, when she'd accidentally let slip that Lily was pregnant. He'd gone silent for a long moment before hanging up. Now she suspected he wasn't just keeping Lily close. He was erasing her past. Emma stood, grabbing her coat and car keys. "I have to find her," she told herself, her voice trembling but determined. "Whatever James is up to, I won't let her vanish again." As she stepped out, a cold wind swept through, carrying a sense that things were about to get worse than she feared. Back at the wooden house, Lily lay in bed, her eyes wide in the darkness. The pill under her pillow was a silent warning. She didn't know who James was, a loving husband or a deceiver, but one thing was clear. She wouldn't stay lost in this fog forever. No matter how painful the truth, she'd reclaim herself. The salty sea breeze brushed against Lily's face, carrying a taste of freedom she hadn't felt during the days trapped in the fog of her memory. She sat in the passenger seat, her eyes glued to the scenery outside, white waves crashing against golden sand. James drove beside her, his hands gripping the steering wheel, a rare smile tugging at his lips as he glanced her way. "You'll love this place," he said, his voice warm like the morning sun. "It's our special spot." Lily nodded, but unease simmered within her. Since waking up after the accident, she'd lived in the wooden house with James, listening to him recount a 5-year marriage she couldn't recall. He cared for her tenderly, yet the dreams of a blonde woman and the secret photos she'd found in that wooden box haunted her. Today, when James suggested a trip to a coastal resort to help her relax, she agreed. Not out of trust, but in hopes of uncovering more about her past. The car pulled up to a luxurious resort, its grand sign reading, "Lily's Haven Resort." She looked up, eyes widening in surprise. "Lily's Haven," she murmured, turning to James. "It's named after me." James smiled, slipping an arm around her waist and pulling her close. "Yes, it's the gift I gave you for your birthday 2 years ago. You always dreamed of a place to escape the world, and I made it happen. My family doesn't know about it. This is our little secret." Lily's heart raced. A resort named after her. It sounded like a fairy tale, but why couldn't she remember it? She let James lead her inside, her feet treading a stone path to a quaint seaside villa. The interior was cozy, adorned with oil paintings and elegant wooden furniture. But as she entered the master bedroom, something on the dresser stopped her cold. A weathered silver ring, engraved with J&L, forever. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the inscription, a faint, familiar feeling stirring within her. "James," she called, her voice trembling. "What's this?" James approached, a flicker of panic crossing his eyes before he steadied himself. "That's the ring I gave you when I first proposed," he said softly. "You always kept it here, as a memento." Lily nodded, but questions swirled in her mind like the waves outside. If this was their place, why did it feel so alien? Before she could press further, James took her hand and led her to the balcony. "Lily," he said, his tone turning serious, "I want to redo something you don't remember. I want us to marry again, right here on this beach." She froze, staring at him in disbelief. "Marry again?" she echoed, her voice hesitant. "But I don't remember the first time. Why would you—" "Because I love you," James interrupted, his hands tightening around hers. "You don't recall our first wedding, but I want you to have a new memory, a beautiful one. Let me do this again, Lily. Will you be my wife once more?" Lily gazed into his eyes, and for a moment she saw tears glistening there. Her heart wavered, not because she remembered him, but because the sincerity in his voice touched something deep inside her. "Okay," she whispered, her voice soft as the breeze. "I will." James smiled, pulling her into his arms and placing a crown of wildflowers he'd prepared on her head. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Come on, the officiant's waiting." The ceremony took place on the beach, beneath a blazing sunset. It was just the two of them and an officiant standing on the white sand, the waves providing a natural soundtrack. Lily wore a simple white dress James had arranged, the flower crown swaying gently in the wind. As the officiant recited the vows, she repeated each word, but amid the sweet rush of emotion, a sudden storm roared in. Fierce winds whipped around them, dark clouds rolled overhead, and rain poured down as if to drown everything. In a panic, Lily cried out, "Don't leave me!" a plea erupting from her subconscious that she didn't understand. James wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the storm. "I'm here, Lily. I'm not going anywhere," he shouted over the wind, holding her tight as if she might vanish. The tempest passed as quickly as it came, leaving them drenched but still standing, hands clasped. The officiant, though startled, finished the vows, declaring them husband and wife. James leaned down to kiss her, and in that kiss, Lily felt an intensity she couldn't explain. That night, in the villa, as James slept soundly beside her, Lily sat up, moonlight streaming through the window onto his face. She held the silver ring, slipping it onto her ring finger. A hazy memory flickered, James kneeling under moonlight, placing the ring on her hand, but it dissolved like smoke. She lay back down, telling herself she might be falling for this man again. Even if her past remained a mystery, but the next morning, as she stepped onto the balcony, a resort worker approached, holding an old photo. "Miss Lily, do you remember this place?" he asked with a smile, handing it to her. In the picture, she and James stood by the sea, her hand raised with a seashell, a caption below. "Keep going, don't give up, Lily and James." She smiled, about to thank him, but he added, "The last time you were here, you asked me to keep this photo. Said it was your motivation to stick with James despite everything being so hard." Lily froze, her smile stiffening. "Hard? What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. The worker hesitated, then replied, "I'm not sure, but you said you were afraid of losing him to someone else. You told me not to tell anyone, but now that you're back, I thought—" "Lily?" James's voice cut in from behind, interrupting the worker. He stepped forward, a trace of worry in his eyes. "What's going on?" The worker bowed his head and hurried off, leaving Lily with the photo in hand. She turned to James, her gaze probing. "James, what's this? He said I was afraid of losing you. To who?" James forced a laugh, resting a hand on her shoulder. "He must have mixed you up with someone else. Don't overthink it. We just got married again. Be happy." But as he turned away, Lily clutched the photo tightly, a fierce instinct rising within her. There was something in their past James didn't want her to remember, and she swore she'd uncover it, no matter the cost. The night sky above Lily's Haven resort glittered with stars, but the air inside the seaside villa hung heavy, as if bracing for a storm. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clutching the old photo the resort worker had given her that morning. The image of her and James by the sea, her hand raised with a seashell, and the caption, "Keep going, don't give up, Lily and James," was etched into her mind. Yet the worker's words, that she'd once feared losing James to someone else, pierced her like a needle, keeping sleep at bay. James lay beside her, his steady breathing filling the darkness. He slept soundly after their long day staging a second wedding, but Lily couldn't close her eyes. She rose and stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool sea breeze calm her racing thoughts. The photo felt heavier than ever, as if it held a secret just beyond her reach. Since waking from the accident, she'd lived in a world James had crafted. A perfect marriage, flawless photos, and sweet declarations of love. But now she doubted it all. The next morning, as James went to fetch breakfast, Lily seized her chance. She rummaged through the villa, desperate for anything to unveil the truth. In a drawer beneath the vanity, she found a small silver box locked tight. With a hairpin and some deft maneuvering, she pried it open and her heart nearly stopped at what lay inside. Another photo, not of her and James, but of James with Sophia, the blonde woman from her dreams. They stood before an altar, hand in hand, with a handwritten note beneath. James and Sophia. Engagement day. Lily's blood surged, her trembling hands letting the photo slip to the floor. Sophia. The name echoed in her mind like a forgotten puzzle piece. If she was each other, she staggered back, her knuckles whitening as she clutched the divorce papers tighter. Sophia, she whispered, her voice hoarse, locking onto the image. Who is she? Before she could shove the photo back into the box, James's footsteps sounded outside the door. She quickly stood, stuffing the box back into the drawer, but her eyes betrayed her turmoil. Lily, breakfast's here, James said, entering with a tray of food. He smiled, but it faded as he caught her expression. What's wrong? You look pale. Lily took a deep breath, steadying her voice. James, the worker gave me a photo of us this morning. He said I was afraid of losing you to someone else. Do you know anything about that? James froze, the tray tilting slightly in his hands. He must have gotten it wrong, he said, his tone strained. Don't dwell on it. We just got married again. Focus on now. But Lily pressed on, stepping closer, her gaze piercing. Then why do I feel like you're hiding something? James, I don't remember the past, but I'm not stupid. What's the truth? James set the tray down, his fists clenching. Lily, I love you. Everything I've done is to protect you. Stop digging into the past. It doesn't matter anymore. His words only fueled her fire. Lily turned away, her mind swirling with suspicion. That night, when James handed her the white pill he claimed would help her memory, she didn't take it. She faked swallowing, tucking it into her sleeve, and when he left the room, she resolved to escape and uncover the truth. Back at the wooden house the next day, Lily secretly pocketed a pill from the bottle James left on the table. She knew she needed an outsider to analyze it, but with James watching her closely, leaving was impossible. One morning, as he tinkered with the car outside, she feigned a stomachache, pleading, I need to go to town for medicine. I can't take it anymore. James frowned, but her desperate look softened him. Fine, but I'm coming with you, he said warily. In the small town, Lily entered a pharmacy with James close behind. She pretended to browse for stomach medicine, but when a street vendor distracted him, she grabbed the arm of a man in a white coat, a local doctor, just entering. Please help me, she whispered, slipping the pill into his hand. I've lost my memory, and my husband says this helps me recover. Can you tell me what it is? The doctor glanced at her, then at the pill, his expression darkening. Not here, he murmured, eyeing James. But I'll be quick. This isn't for memory recovery. It's a rare inhibitor used to suppress memories. And if you're pregnant, like I suspect from your look, it could seriously harm the baby. Lily's world spun, as if it had just crumbled. She stepped back, hands cradling her stomach, tears spilling uncontrollably. You're sure? She whispered, her voice breaking. The doctor nodded, his eyes full of pity. I'm sorry. Don't take it anymore. You need a safe place to protect yourself and the child. Before she could say more, James turned back, his gaze sharpening as he saw her with the doctor. Lily, you done? He asked, his tone icy. She nodded, choking back tears. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. On the drive home, she sat silently, hands on her belly, her heart flooded with pain and rage. James hadn't just lied about her past, he'd tried to erase it, risking her health and their unborn child's. But why? What in their history was so terrible he'd go this far? When they reached the house, James hugged her from behind, whispering, I love you, Lily. Everything I do is for you. For the first time, she didn't respond. She stood there, feeling his arms around her, but inside a fire of resolve blazed. She wouldn't let him control her anymore. No matter how painful the truth, she'd reclaim herself and protect the child she hadn't known about before the crash. The wooden house in the remote countryside lay cloaked in darkness, with only the faint moonlight seeping through the window, illuminating Lily's pale face. She sat on the bed, hands cradling her stomach, her breaths ragged as if she'd just escaped a nightmare. Since returning from the resort, she'd stopped taking the white pills James gave her, hiding them under her pillow and replacing them with a burning resolve to uncover the truth. The pill she'd stolen from his bottle, the one the town doctor confirmed was a memory suppressant, glowed like a warning ember in her heart. But tonight, everything shifted. Memories, sharp and jagged, began clawing their way up from the depths of her mind. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, trying to tame the throbbing pain in her head. The first image surfaced, a luxurious living room where Evelyn, James's mother, stood before her with a sneer of contempt. "Do you remember, Lily?" Evelyn's voice echoed in her mind, cold as a blade. "If you don't bear a child in 3 years, you're out." That was the deal. Then came James, his gaze icy as he said, "Yes, Lily, we should end this." Those words stabbed her heart like needles, but the memories didn't stop. She saw herself kneeling before James, tears streaming down her face, begging him not to leave, only to receive his emotionless headshake in return. Her eyes snapped open, tears spilling uncontrollably. "No, no," she whispered, clutching her head, desperate to banish the images. But they wouldn't relent. She remembered that final night with James when she'd demanded one last moment with him, not out of love, but from a fear of being erased entirely. She recalled him kneeling before signing the divorce papers, whispering, "I'm sorry, Lily, I didn't want this, but I couldn't fight her." What she'd once seen as weakness now fueled a fire that consumed her. Lily sprang to her feet, her trembling legs carrying her downstairs to James's study. He was there, seated at his desk, the computer screen casting light on his face. She didn't knock, didn't wait. She shoved the door open and stormed in, her eyes blazing like never before. "James," she called, her voice hoarse but commanding, "what have you done to me?" James flinched, spinning around, his eyes widening in shock. "Lily? Why aren't you asleep? What's—" He faltered as he saw her face, panic flickering in his gaze. "Stop pretending," Lily shouted, her voice reverberating through the small room. She charged forward, hurling the pill bottle onto the desk, the white tablets scattering across the wood. "What are these, James? Medicine to help me remember, or to wipe me out of your life?" James recoiled, his hands trembling. "Lily, calm down. I can explain." "Explain?" She cut him off, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I remember, James. I remember Evelyn forcing me out because I couldn't get pregnant. I remember you begging me to forgive you, then signing the divorce papers anyway. And now you've trapped me here, feeding me drugs to make me forget, to turn me into your puppet." James stood, stepping closer, his eyes filled with pain and desperation. "Lily, I was wrong. I know I messed up letting you go. When I found out you were pregnant, I couldn't lose you again. I did it all because I love you." "Love me?" Lily laughed bitterly, her voice a mix of anguish and scorn. She pulled the silver ring from her pocket, the one he'd given her at their second wedding by the sea, and flung it to the floor. "Love me so you stole my memories? Love me so you kept me in a lie? If it weren't for that accident, you'd have married Sophia and forgotten me forever." James dropped to his knees, clutching her legs, tears splashing onto the floor. "No, Lily, I didn't want Sophia. I left her to come back to you. I gave up everything, my family, my fortune, to make things right. Please, don't leave me." But Lily didn't waver. She yanked her legs free, her gaze icy. "You gave up everything? Or you just wanted the child in my womb to appease your mother? I'm not your tool, James. I'm Lily, the woman you betrayed. And now I want a divorce. This time, it's my choice." James looked up, his face drained of color as if his soul had fled. "No, Lily, don't do this. I love you. I swear I'll fix it. We just got married again. You can't—" "Married again?" she interrupted, her voice trembling with fury. "That was your scam when I couldn't remember. You used me, James. It's over. I'm leaving, and you don't get to stop me." She turned and stormed out, ignoring his cries echoing behind her. "Lily, don't go. I'm begging you," he screamed, but she didn't look back. She ran outside, barefoot on the red dirt path, tears mixing with the dust. She didn't know where she'd go, but she knew she had to escape him, escape the cage he'd built around her. Rain began to fall, cold drops soaking through her clothes, but she didn't stop. When she reached Emma's house, the only refuge she could think of, she pounded on the door, her hands shaking from exhaustion. Emma flung it open, her eyes widening in shock at the sight of Lily, drenched and broken. "Lily! Oh my God, what happened?" Emma pulled her inside, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "What's going on?" Lily broke down, her voice choking through sobs. "Emma, James, he lied to me. He gave me drugs to forget. I remember everything. He abandoned me, and now he wants me back because of the baby. I can't take it anymore." Emma gripped her hands tightly, her eyes blazing with anger. "What? He did that to you? That bastard? You're staying here, Lily. I'll protect you." Lily nodded, tears still falling. In her heart, pain mingled with relief. She'd reclaimed herself, but the cost was a heart shattered once more. As she leaned into Emma's shoulder, she whispered, "I won't forgive him, Emma. Never." Emma's small apartment sat quietly in the heart of the city, its soft yellow lamplight casting a warm glow on the white walls, a comforting space that couldn't mend Lily's shattered heart. She sat on the sofa, hands wrapped tightly around her stomach, her vacant gaze lost in the void. 3 months had passed since she fled James, abandoning the wooden house and the web of lies he'd spun. Emma had taken her in, becoming her sole anchor in the storm of her life. Her pregnancy was increasingly evident, and each gentle kick from within brought a mix of joy and pain. Joy at the prospect of motherhood, pain because the child tied her to the man she once loved. Emma emerged from the kitchen, holding a steaming mug of tea. "Lily, drink this," she said, her voice gentle but tinged with worry. "You need to stay strong, especially now." Lily offered a faint smile, taking the mug but not sipping it. "Thanks, Emma. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I'd do." Emma sat beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Don't say that. I'll always be here. But are you okay? I mean, with James, he keeps sending stuff here every week. Flowers, letters, even baby toys. Are you going to see him?" Lily shook her head, her eyes darkening. "No, I don't want to face him. He stole my past, trapped me in lies. I can't forgive him." Her words were cut short by the doorbell, piercing the quiet. Emma frowned, rising to answer it, her voice tightening. "Lily, it's another package. This one says, 'Watch now.'" Lily stood, her hands trembling as Emma brought in a small wooden box, its lid engraved with a handwritten plea. "Lily, please." Inside was an old video cassette and a note. "Watch it, I beg you." Emma eyed her skeptically. "You don't have to. It's just another trick." But Lily didn't respond. She took the tape and walked to the old projector Emma kept from her college days. With a moment's hesitation, she inserted it, and as the screen flickered to life, her heart stopped. James stood before a grey stone grave, his clothes soaked with rain, his eyes red and swollen. He stared into the camera, his voice hoarse. "Lily, if you're seeing this, I just want to say I'm sorry. I'm at my father's grave, the only one in our family who loved you like a daughter. I was wrong to let Mum force me to leave you. I was wrong to use those drugs to keep you, but I swear I didn't want to lose you again. I've given up everything, my inheritance, my wealth, to prove I love you. I'm begging for one chance." The image of James kneeling before the grave, rain mixing with his tears, made Lily stagger back, a hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Emma rushed forward, shutting off the projector, her voice quaking with fury. "Don't believe him, Lily. He's a liar. He's just trying to drag you back." Lily stayed silent, her mind a whirlwind. James's sincerity, his rain-soaked plea, and a memory of his father, Robert, surfaced vividly. Robert had hugged her on their first wedding day, whispering, "You're a gift to this family, Lily. Don't let Evelyn destroy it." He died soon after, and now James wielded his memory to reach her heart. The next day, as Lily sat on the balcony, the doorbell rang again. Emma opened it, and this time Evelyn stepped in, her eyes red, her once proud demeanor gone. She dropped to her knees before Lily, her voice trembling. "Lily, I was wrong. I forced James to leave you because I wanted a grandchild. But now I know you're pregnant, with twins, right? Please forgive him. Don't let my son live in misery." Lily stood, her fists clenched. "Forgive?" She laughed bitterly, her voice icy. "You drove me out, humiliated me, and now you kneel here for your grandchildren? You taught me how to be strong when abandoned, Evelyn. I don't need you or James anymore." Evelyn sobbed, but Lily remained unmoved. Emma stepped in, pulling Evelyn out, her tone firm. "Leave. Don't bother her again." Time passed, and Lily's due date arrived. In the delivery room, she gripped Emma's hand as the cries of 2 babies, a boy and a girl, filled the air like a healing melody. When the nurse placed them in her arms, Lily wept, whispering, "Robert and Grace, you're my everything." Names honoring James's father and a grandmother she'd never known, a way to reconcile with the past without forgiving him. But as she left the hospital, James appeared, standing silently by the gate with a bouquet of white flowers. He didn't approach, just watched from afar, his eyes brimming with pain. Emma moved to shoo him away, but Lily stopped her. "Let him stay," she said calmly. "He needs to see how strong I am without him." James stepped forward, kneeling once more, his voice breaking. "Lily, I don't expect forgiveness now, but let me be there for the kids. I'll do anything to make amends." Lily looked at him, her heart wavering, not from love, but for the twins in her arms. They deserved a father. "Fine," she said, her tone cold, "but not for you, for them. And if you ever hurt me again, I'll take them away forever." James nodded, tears streaming down his face. Evelyn, watching from a distance, bowed her head in acceptance. Lily turned away, stepping into the car with Emma, her heart both lighter and heavier. She'd forgiven, not to forget, but to move on. 2 months after the birth of her twins, Robert and Grace, the gentle autumn sunlight filtered into Emma's small apartment, now transformed into a cozy haven for Lily and her children. The innocent laughter of the babies echoed from their wooden crib, easing some of the scars etched into Lily's heart. She stood by the window, cradling a cold cup of coffee, her gaze quietly tracing the flow of people below. James still appeared every week, bringing formula, diapers, and small toys, but she never let him cross the threshold. He lingered outside, silently watching her and the twins through the glass, a ghostly remnant of a past she couldn't fully erase. Emma entered, holding a white envelope with James's familiar handwriting. "Another letter," she said, her tone edged with frustration. "He's not giving up, Lily. What are you going to do?" Lily took the envelope, her fingers brushing over the hastily scrawled, "Lily, please read," on the front. She didn't open it right away, setting it on the table as a flicker of uncertainty crossed her eyes. "I don't know, Emma," she whispered. "I want to hate him forever, but every time I look at Robert and Grace, I see him in them. I don't want them to grow up without a father." Emma sighed and sitting beside her. "You're stronger than anyone I know, Lily. But if you give him a chance, do it for you, not just the kids. He's hurt you too much." That night, with the twins fast asleep, Lily opened the letter. Inside was a short note, James's shaky handwriting pleading, "Lily, I know I don't deserve it, but please give me one last chance. Meet me at Lily's Haven under the full moon tomorrow. I'll wait." She folded it, her heart a tangled mess. Lily's Haven, the place where he'd proposed to her a second time, where she'd once believed his lies. But now she was no longer the fragile woman from those distorted memories. The next morning, Lily stood before the mirror, slipping into a simple white dress. Not to please James, but to affirm her own confidence. She turned to Emma, her voice resolute. "I'm going to meet him, but this time I'll be the one in control." When she arrived at the resort, the full moon hung high, bathing the beach in a shimmering silver glow. James stood near the water's edge, his black tuxedo, the one from his failed wedding to Sophia, now worn and rumpled. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, his red-rimmed eyes lighting up in the dark. "Lily," he whispered, his voice choked. "You came." Lily stopped a few steps away, her gaze cold yet tinged with emotion. "I didn't come for you, James," she said firmly. "I came for myself and the kids. Tell me, what do you want?" James dropped to his knees, his trembling hands sinking into the sand. "I want to marry you a third time, Lily. Not to deceive you, not to trap you. I want to start over, truly start over. I was wrong to betray you, to let my mother control me, to use drugs to erase your memories. I don't expect you to forget what I did. I just beg you for a chance to make it right." Lily's chest tightened. She wanted to scream at him, to turn and leave him kneeling there forever. But the faces of Robert and Grace flashed in her mind. She stepped closer, looking down at him, her voice quivering with mixed emotions. "You think an apology is enough? You think I can trust you after everything?" James looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I don't expect you to trust me now, but I'll prove it, Lily. I've given up my inheritance, walked away from my mother, and now all I have is you and the kids. If you say yes, I want to marry you right here, under this moon, with a vow I'll keep until I die." Before Lily could reply, a voice cut through the night. "Lily, don't listen to him." Emma rushed forward, grabbing her arm. "He'll hurt you again. You don't need him." But then something unexpected happened. A car rolled up the nearby road, and Sophia stepped out, her golden hair gleaming under the moonlight. She approached, her once arrogant eyes now calm. "Lily," she said softly, "I wrote to James last week, telling him I let him go long ago. He didn't come back to me after your accident. He chose you. I'm here to say that, and to wish you both well." Lily stood stunned, her eyes shifting from Sophia to James. The revelation hit her like a jolt, swaying her between doubt and hope. Sophia turned and left, leaving Lily with James and Emma under the moon. Emma stepped back, her gaze softening. "If this is what you want, I'll support you, but be sure, Lily." Lily took a deep breath, looking at James kneeling before her. She stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder, her voice low but firm. "All right, James, I'll marry you a third time, but this time you'll swear in front of our children, swear before your father's spirit, that you'll never betray me again. If you break that vow, I'll take Robert and Grace away, and you'll never find us." James nodded, rising to his feet, his hands gripping hers tightly. "I swear, Lily, under this moon, before my father, before our kids, I'll love and protect you until my last breath." The wedding unfolded right there on the beach. No priest, no guests, just the two of them with the waves as witnesses. James slipped a new ring onto her finger. Not the old one, but a simple band engraved with "Forever." As he kissed her, Lily felt the sincerity in his every heartbeat. But she didn't forget her warning. "If you break this, James," she whispered in his ear, "I'll vanish with the kids, and you'll live in regret forever." James squeezed her hand, his eyes blazing. "I won't let that happen, Lily. I promise." As they walked along the sand, hand in hand, the full moon lit their path ahead. Lily wasn't sure if love could heal every wound, but she knew she'd made a choice, not to forget, but to move forward, with a vow she'd hold him to for life. Hey everyone, that's it. The dramatic journey of Lily and James wraps up under the full moon. From the sting of betrayal, the shocking twists with memory-erasing pills, to Lily's fierce stand and James's life-or-death vow, did your heart race along with it? Will James keep his promise to love Lily until his final breath? Or will she one day make good on her threat, disappearing with Robert and Grace forever? This story isn't just about love, it's about the power of forgiveness and freedom. If you loved this emotional roller coaster, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more gripping tales. Hit that like button if you're Team Lily, and drop a comment below. Do you think James deserves forgiveness, or should Lily have walked away for good? Your thoughts mean the world to us and inspire what's next. Share this story and stick around for more top-tier drama, jaw-dropping twists, and heart-bursting moments. Thanks for joining us on this ride.